ironic deaths that really happened. Ever heard the one about the fire extinguisher factory that burned down? Or the scuba diver who died in a forest fire? Well, we've got a lot more where those came from, because this is ironic deaths that really happened. We'll tell you about several people who could not have seen the end coming, unless they had a dark sense of humor. And before we start, these are actually ironic ways to die. None of that Alanis Morissette, "Isn't that ironic?" crap that, as we've established, is all just coincidental. Now prepare yourself as we travel back in time in search of ironic deaths. Our first ironic death is an old favorite. It's a drowning that happened in the last place anyone would expect. The year is 1985. The place? New Orleans, Louisiana. NOLA for short. The New Orleans Recreation Department was hosting a pool party to celebrate the first year in living memory that the city saw no drowning deaths at any of its pools. Over 200 lifeguards were in attendance and 4 lifeguards were on duty. According to an Associated Press report, Rec Department Director Madeline Richards said, "This was the first annual party in memory where they could celebrate a trouble-free season. We'd all been talking about it. It was the first single season without a single drowning incident." Sadly, those lifeguards were counting their chickens before they all got out of the pool. After the party ended, 31-year-old Jerome Moody was the last one to get out of the water. They found him at the bottom of the deep end with all his clothes on. An autopsy confirmed that he had drowned. "The lifeguards were really upset. It's a real tragedy," Miss Richards said at the time. "Just goes to show you can't let your guard down. Not even for a minute. Not even right now." To visit our second ironic death, we'll have to go just a little bit north and way further back in history. We're going to hear the story of the lawyer who accidentally killed himself while proving to the jury that a dead man could have accidentally killed himself. The year is 1871. The place is Lebanon, Ohio. Thomas McGeehan was accused of shooting a man dead during a brawl in a saloon, but his defense attorney say the dead man shot himself by accident. They didn't have CSI back then, so the lawyers needed to demonstrate their theory to the jury. But how? An innocent man could hang at the gallows if they didn't crack that nut. One of the defense attorneys is a former Ohio congressman named Clement Vallandigham. Vallandigham had proven to be a bit of a political loser and a racist, but that day he'd turn out to be an amazing defense attorney. Vallandigham showed the other defense lawyers how a gun could snag on his pocket and accidentally fire. He did this using one of the pistols in the room, which he didn't realize was loaded. It turned out he was right, and the gun fired directly into his gut. Their client Thomas McGeehan was set free the same day. Vallandigham died the day after that. He was a crummy politician, but possibly the most dedicated defense attorney in American history. From an overly dedicated defense lawyer to an actor who took his part a bit too seriously, our third story keeps up the working yourself to death motif. In 1958, 2 things were popular: TV and nuclear war. Wishing to capitalize on the impending nuclear holocaust, British TV broadcaster ITV showed a live performance of the cheerful stage play Underground. It's about a group of survivors surviving the post-atomic fallout by hiding in the London Underground. The script called for one of the survivors, played by 31-year-old Gareth Jones, to die of a heart attack. Unfortunately for the production, Jones missed his mark and died of a massive heart attack before he was supposed to. But in the true spirit of theater, the show must go on. The other actors were not informed there'd be no more Jones, so they improvised. After the show ended, the producer admitted they had kept Jones's death secret from the other actors. Since Jones was a close friend, the producer was afraid they'd be too upset to continue. Oh gee, you think? Our last ironic death could have happened to anyone, but it just happened to be one of the most influential people in the early 20th century. Today, though, some only remember him as the man who died after reading his own obituary. His name was Marcus Garvey. First, a little background. Marcus Garvey was born in Jamaica in 1887. He's considered to be the father of Pan-Africanism and Black nationalism. He started the Universal Negro Improvement Association and published the newspaper Negro World in the United States. Garvey was a controversial figure, and he made enemies wherever he went. The NAACP denounced Garvey for promoting racial separation as part of his Return to Africa initiative. The FBI suspected him of inciting a nationwide revolt by African Americans. The government eventually convicted Garvey of mail fraud, sent him to prison, and later deported him. Now you know a little background, so you won't be surprised that when the Chicago Defender newspaper mistakenly wrote an obituary for Garvey in 1940, it wasn't very flattering. Meanwhile, Garvey was living in London and his health was already bad. It took 6 months for the newspaper to reach him, but when he saw it, yes, Marcus Garvey had a stroke and died. Jamaica proclaimed Marcus Garvey a national hero. He inspired Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Nelson Mandela. He's also considered a prophet by Rastafarians. But you can remember him as the guy who died reading his own obituary, since I guess that's why you're here. There you have it, the 4 most ironic deaths since Alanis Morissette's career. Maybe our next video will be about the most unsurprising deaths ever, such as the crocodile hunter who was killed by a stingray.
Yeah, that's the ticket.
Bye-bye!